You have a hankering for medical scandals. This gender thing, is it different in kind or power, extent?
It's different. It's so mad. It's so awful. It's so terrible what's happening now that in the report, I use 4 past medical scandals, and I selected those 4 for a very specific reason. I believe you combine all 4 of those into one, and you basically have today's super scandal, but you're still not quite there. Like, even today's scandal, you've got to add in this crazy political movement that is so powerful and so like dominates our lives and prevents us from speaking or even raising concerns. Like,
this is connected to the major establishments. All the major establishments are supporting it and lifting it up. So you have hospital after hospital opening gender clinics in children's hospitals. It's the whole medical establishment. It's not just this tiny little tribe. And then you have the United States government like flying the trans flag, right?
If you look at it, if you take a step back and you take the emotion out of it, it is actually a really remarkable achievement. What these people pulled off is incredible. This bonkers idea just appeared overnight, and everybody just accepted it. That's what's truly amazing to me. One day, teachers were suddenly told that they had to teach that every child possesses a gender soul. What makes them a boy or girl is this gender soul. You can have male girls, you can have female boys. And everybody just went along with it. These materials were introduced in the curriculum, and everybody just started teaching it. And it's the equivalent of like teachers showing up tomorrow and being told that they have to teach that the world is flat, and everyone just going along with it. How did this bonkers idea capture everyone? And I think it's because it's not a grassroots rights movement. Nothing like that at all. Of course, it's all happening behind the scenes. It's all the work of a tiny, tiny number of very powerful people. They've created a fictional world in which they can be a member of the opposite sex, and they have the power and the influence and the money to just impose it upon all of society. And then we all have to live in their fictional world. And if we don't, they will destroy us. Of course, it's all sustained on the fact that anyone who dares to disagree gets absolutely destroyed. They could not have done this with open debate and persuasion like every other rights movement that came before, because it's all so completely absurd. And at the center of it sits WPATH. Yeah. They are the ones who have unleashed this upon us.
It just seems like it's this little tribe that got a couple of different ideas on, and then they just get into this like crazed mania of trying to like, the kid has to be trans or else human rights are on the line. Like, this is the end of the world if we don't trans this kid.
That is what the whole experiment was about, right? That the whole experiment on children started because adults were unhappy with the outcome of the experiment that they took part in. Adult men are unhappy. They don't look like women. What's the solution? Instead of saying, okay, this was a failure, we should not have done this, let's close up shop and pretend that this never happened, or at least, not do this anymore. Someone in a Dutch clinic had the idea, well, we'll just do it to children instead, then we'll have better results. I read the literature. They knew right at the beginning that this was going to be, there was a risk of false positives in children, and yet still they did it because the cosmetic benefits would be so great that they felt it was worth doing. We do not benefit from having this diagnosis of childhood onset gender dysphoria. There's no benefit to it. I think it only causes harm. And so therefore, if I had my way, it would be gone. It would not even exist. I think the entire experiment is deeply misguided, extremely harmful, and at its root, I do believe it's evil. I don't know that I'm not calling these Dutch researchers actual evil people, but I think the reasoning behind it is just, it's actually evil to look at the failed experiment in adults and have the idea to to do it to children. That's that was their solution. We failed over here, so let's do it to kids. That's an evil idea. But even further than that, I think that the entire diagnostic category of gender dysphoria or gender incongruence or whatever we've got is not beneficial to anyone. I think it's culture bound, of course. It's not real in the sense that cancer or diabetes is real. It's a culture bound psychiatric disorder, and I do not think it's beneficial for anyone to interpret their lives through that lens.
I think that there's room for gender expression. I don't think interpreting your life through it, but I think returning to a reasonable... No,
you misunderstood.
Okay.
Okay. No, gender dysphoria. I'm talking the DSM diagnosis of gender dysphoria. You can debate forever whether it's real or not. I mean, that's one debate. The more beneficial, the more interesting debate is it beneficial to the person given that diagnosis? Does a person benefit from either self-diagnosing with gender dysphoria and then pursuing medical intervention? Yeah. Do they benefit? And I do not think that anyone benefits from the existence of this diagnostic category. Gender, yeah, of course. How can I sit here like I skew towards the more extreme end of what would be stereotypically feminine?
The world is not flat.
The world is not flat. Yeah. I cannot sit here and say that gender is all nonsense, abolish it, whatever. I'm not that. Okay. I don't exist in that world. If I had my way, we would get rid of the entire category, the entire diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Because as long as the diagnosis exists, people will select it from the symptom pool. People in distress will think, why am I distressed? Why am I feeling so terrible? They will unconsciously select from the symptom pool gender dysphoria. And with that selection comes a medical pathway that I do not believe benefits anyone. Mm-hmm. Everyone would be better off living the non-medicalized life without giving themselves or being given the diagnosis of gender dysphoria. But as for differences in gender expression, we should celebrate that, to express yourself however you like. But as well, you can't suggest that gender is nonsense. Like I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And in my past life, before I became, somebody that many people dislike, I had a group of mothers. We all would get together. We would go to the park with many, many children amongst us. And many of these, 2 of them were certainly very much in this mindset of, raising the genderless children. I could give them, like whatever toys. There's no such thing as boy toys, girl toys, everything. Yeah. And yet we would all arrive at the park. And in an instant, the boys would grab sticks, go over there and start fighting, stick fighting and charging around. And the girls would separate and they would go over there and they're drawing in the sand and they're talking and they're doing whatever. Yeah. And I recall once pointing that out, they say
noticing is always the path to bad outcomes, Mia.
Turns out, it didn't go down so well. I'm like, the boys always do this. Look, they're over there with their sticks and the girls over here. And it was like, they dropped like a lead balloon. Nobody was particularly happy about the fact that I had pointed out an obvious difference between girls and boys. But there's where gender dysphoria comes from, is that if you're a boy and you skew over here, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. But you're going to feel different. You're going to be set apart from those boys over there, and that's going to cause discomfort. So the dysphoria comes from not being accepting of this little boy who wants to sit over there and do the Jazz Jennings type, who wanted to play with the Barbie dolls and wear the sparkly bathing suits. And so we would be so much better if we could just accept that people sit in various places along the gender spectrum and work on just having everyone accept that, rather than feeling like we have to chop body parts off to make everyone fit where they should on this spectrum.